This work that you're doing, I know I've asked you over the years, can I help? How can I help? What gifts do I have that I can use to serve? That's born from a place of seeing a human being go from healthy, whole, and vibrant to broken, to addicted, to hopeless. And to see the work that your organization does, that's the least that I can do. These folks in prison, as we would visit my brother over the course of a decade, we met their families, their siblings, their children, their parents. It's not just the prisoner that's imprisoned, it's the families that are impacted as well. So I would just love the message to be see their humanity.
Welcome to Uncomplicating the System, where we dive deep into the heart of social justice and unravel the intricate web of human experiences that intersect with the criminal justice system. I'm one of the hosts, Ann Fisher, and today we're exploring a story that shines a light on the unwavering strength of family connections, the struggles of navigating life with loved ones behind bars, and the transformative power of compassion and understanding. Our focus today centers on an incredibly moving story, one that challenges us to look beyond the prison walls and see the human beings that reside within and around them. We're joined by Vanessa Garcia, a woman whose journey of love, sacrifice, and support for her brother offers a beacon of hope and a testament to the strength of family ties in the face of adversity. It's a story that asks us to consider what it truly means to support another, how we can overcome stigmas in our society, and the ways in which our own perspectives of justice and rehabilitation can evolve through personal experience. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Vanessa Garcia and invite you to share a little bit about yourself before we go into it. Welcome, Vanessa.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you for the introduction. And it's been quite the journey, but I'll pause and go back a little bit. I am the middle child of a family of five, an older brother and a younger brother. Many years later, a younger sister entered the scene. So there's a total of four of us. The brother that we are speaking of is my younger brother. He's 2 years younger than me. It's been quite the journey. You mentioned that we would fly to Arizona to make sure he knew he wasn't forgotten. That was from the Bay Area, and we did that for a bit of time. I would say a stint of 5 years. Other 5 years were in California, so it's a total of 10 years total. And we'll kind of go through that story as we discuss just what the journey was all about.
So there came the point when COVID came, Vanessa, and he needed to be out of the incarcerated population, and you were asked if he would come into your home. Can you tell us about that journey?
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned, COVID struck, and he was awaiting a trial at the time and in jail. And we mentioned that he had a myriad of health conditions. One that he's very public about is a brain tumor. So he does have brain cancer. Along with that, he suffers from celiac disease. So in prison, that's not a great place to be when you have celiac. Well, it's not a great place to be in general, but with those health conditions, it was very challenging for him. I was asked if I would consider having him move in with me. It was a precedent-setting case in that we were in a global pandemic and we have somebody who has had major health conditions where their life is actually in jeopardy while being behind bars. Challenges with getting the brain scans done, getting the right food. He was dehydrated from vomiting from the celiac disease because they're not catering to your nutritional needs in jail. And so my initial thought was, I can't do it. I can't do it. That feels like too much. We've been on this journey for so long now. Truth be told, I was a little worn out
Yeah.
from the back and forth and from juvenile hall to jail to prison. It was just a lot. And I thought I was at the point in my life where I just really wanted to take a step back from it. Fast forward to the COVID season, and my mom had asked, "Would you come to his court hearing?" Sure, I'll go to support you. Little bit of apprehension because at the end of the day, that is still my little brother, and that is what I see when I see him. 6 foot 4 inch little brother. So I get to the court. I took my son with me for moral support. My sons are adults, so one of my sons joined me to give me a little support because it's gut wrenching to see someone you
Mm.
love going through this.
Yeah.
They bring him out cuffed, hands cuffed behind his back, and almost irrecognizable. He had
Mm.
lost about 30 pounds from the celiac disease, not being able to eat. Didn't recognize him. Face was sunken in, and my heart shattered. And in that moment, I went from, will I consider having him released to my custody, to absolute yes. Where do I sign? What do I need to do?
Oh,
Because
wow.
that is my brother and that is a human being. With COVID and having these diseases, with his immune system being compromised, there was big risk of him getting really ill and maybe not even making it. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So he comes into your home. I mean, so in your home, can you set the stage? Who's in your home? What your
Yes.
home is like? And then what was it like having him there and how long was he with you?
Great question. So, great questions. So, let me rewind a little bit because it's kind of an interesting story. He gets released to my custody. I sign off all the paperwork. I say it's precedent setting because with his record and his charges, this has never happened before, a global pandemic where somebody who has a compromised immune system is released to the custody of a family member. So that case was precedent setting. So I go to the jail to go pick him up, and jails aren't the friendliest place, and they don't care who you are. You're going to have to figure things out as you go. I show up. He's not here. What do you mean he's not here? Yeah, we transported
God.
about a week ago to Stockton. So in the Bay Area, he was in Dublin at Santa Rita, or so I believed. They transported him to Stockton. Why? I don't know. And so after 4 hours, they let me know he wasn't there. I took my happy hips to Stockton.
Oh my God.
Oh, it'll be a couple of hours. Really? Because he actually has a brain scan scheduled. I worked this out with the probation officer, the federal officers. Um, the federal officer is going to meet me at the hospital to take off the ankle monitor. It's complex. Please hurry. Work on your time system. Eventually got him released, got back into the bay, got him to the hospital, met the officer, took off the device so he can go into the machine. Took care of that, got him back home. I will say I was elated for the opportunity. I went from seeing it as a burden to seeing it as an opportunity to help a human being. And I
Mm,
thought to myself, if not me, who? Who will help him?
right.
And that started the journey. Same day, another federal officer came to the house and they had to inspect the entire house. They had to meet the residents. So it was myself and my husband, two sons in their early 20s. So that was, the family. Measured the house to see how far can he actually travel. Can he go to the backyard? Could he go to the front yard before that alarm goes off? And so it was nerve-wracking to say the least on, whoa, federal officer, let me make sure that I'm doing this right, taking copious notes, making sure I'm a good steward over this obligation, not obligation, but this duty that I had been given. So definitely a state of stress chemistry, I would say, along with the joy seeing him there, knowing I can feed him, give him the proper nutrition, get him to his MRIs. I would say it was a mixed bag of emotions.
How did it land for your husband and kids? That's a big change in your home environment.
Absolutely. My husband has the heart of gold. I would say, out of all humans I've ever met in my life, when I approached him with this initially, the federal defender is the one who really asked me, "Would you do this?"
Mm.
Coupled with my mom saying, "Please." And so I said, "Sure, but let me talk to my family. It affects their lives as well."
Yeah.
Went to my husband and said, "I've got a pretty big ask, and let's talk it through. I want to hear from you. What concerns do you have?" Immediately, and he said, "Sign us up." And I said, "What? You don't want to discuss this? There's going to be an impact?" He said something along the lines of what I was thinking, and that was, "If not me, who?" So he's saying, "If not us, who?" And
Wow.
so he was a go. Spoke to both of my sons who love their uncle. There was a little apprehension on their end. What does that mean for us? What will our life look like? What will change? So we talked through all of those things, and they do love him. So they too said, "Let's do it." The duration was unknown because he was still going through the court process. And so
Wow.
we didn't know, is he going to be sentenced at the end of this? Does he go back to jail? Does he not? We just didn't know at that point. So when we signed up for it, we were just signing up for whatever may come.
With no idea of the longevity of the experience.
None. It ended up being a total of 2 years. And
Yeah.
of course, there was a journey to get to the point at the end of the 2 years, depending on the government, the case, the federal judges that were making the decision on the outcome for him, where we would go with that, what would happen. But we were committed to supporting him every step of the way.
Okay, so Santa's in your home now and the journey begins. I mean, sounds good on paper. Sign us up. We can do this. But what was it really like? Yeah. What was it really like?
That's such a loaded question. It was a lot of learning, I will say, initially. Of course, I grew up with him. He's my brother, but we're in our late 40s now. It's a
Yeah.
different ball game. It's a different dynamic. But I will say we were pleasantly surprised in how well he acclimated. I think he did really well in our home because of the way we live our lifestyle, which was really different than what he had experienced in the course of his life and the decisions that he had made and the repercussions of his decisions. But he entered a home where, there was love openly expressed to one another. There was routine. There was a conscious awareness of how we take care of ourselves mentally, emotionally, spiritually, nutritionally. My husband being a corporate fitness business owner, myself a certified health coach, and that's what we do for fun. That's not our income, our main gig, but we do that because we're passionate about those things. So because I'm now in charge of him, I get to help him decide how to eat. So I put him on a no sugar diet. Sugar feeds any cancer, feeds cancer. So I got his diet in order. He loved it. He loved the food. He was excited. I even found treats and desserts that were sugar free that tasted like they were full of sugar. So that was fun. He really learned, a different level of wellness, a different way of living, a different way of eating. We have a home gym. And so my husband started training with him and, really got him into bodybuilding and taking care of himself. Funny story, the gym is in our RV parking space in the back. And I guess the monitor decided that's too far and it set off the alarm. So that was my first experience of the federal officers calling me, going, "What is going on?" I said, "We're just working out. I promise. Here's FaceTime." So I would have to, anytime that would happen, sometimes it was a fluke. Maybe the Wi-Fi went out, right? There was different reasons for the alarm to go off. And so I never really got used to it. I would still panic and I would FaceTime the officers and say, "No, no, no, no. He's in the gym." And then it was decided the gym is off limits.
Oh,
And that was a bummer because that was part of his mental health. And he
yeah.
couldn't leave the house. So him going into the back was his way of feeling like he's, connected to the rest of the world. No problem. We brought stuff inside. We bought, things on Amazon, weights he could do inside of his room, and we made it work.
So he had his own private space. It didn't
Yes.
feel like a cell, but it was like his own space.
Yeah.
When you think about your mom, I mean, the extended family, because you do have other family members, how did they perceive you and your family, your willingness to do this, Vanessa?
Yeah, and I know you know this, but we'll just state it here. I'm very much heart-centered.
Yeah.
All of my decisions are made from my heart primarily. And so, I mentioned earlier that there was a little bit of hesitation for me. And that hesitation too was because of my heart, my fear of, I can't go through this again. I can't, I traveled to prisons for, 10 years. Before prison, I went to jail, stood in the long lines, did the 4-hour drive each way to prison from the Bay to wherever he was at any given time. Raised my little boys, had a 2-year-old and a baby going to prison to visit him because, I wasn't going to leave him abandoned. That was a very important thing for me. But, truth be told, over the years, I started to lose a little bit of hope because you go through things over and over and over with individuals, and you want the best and you hope for the best, and hope has to be there. Hope's definitely not a strategy, but it's definitely necessary. And so I think, as the years progressed and he found himself in this trouble, yet again, I thought, I'm removing myself. So my family initially thought, wow, if Vanessa's removing herself and she's given up, what does that really mean? This is the one person who's the empath and has the heart for him and people just in general. But again, seeing him in that condition, that's all I needed to see. And so I think there was a high level of gratitude, just holistically from the family, for me to take this on. And I think they understood that I was very well equipped to do it, just in that, I've done my own work, and my husband, being very grounded, very healthy, emotionally, physically, spiritually. It just made the most sense. And the family was fully supportive, very, very supportive. What do you need? My mom would say, hey, I can run to Whole Foods. What exactly are you feeding him? What should I pick up? And so,
Oh,
whatever
no.
support they could offer to
Mhm.
help me understanding it was, we were taking on a lot. And, with my brother comes his gorgeous 160-pound cane Corso. And remember, he can't leave the house. So we were, we had 2 dogs. He brings his dogs. So we got these 3 dogs. And it was, my husband had to do extra walks. I can't walk her. I mean, I'm 5'4", 130 pounds. I'm not walking a cane Corso. And so the gratitude was definitely there from the family, the appreciation. They would stop by and spend some time with them as well, kind of give me a little bit of a break and hanging out with them. We were trying to create a space for him where he didn't feel so confined,
Oh,
couldn't
good.
leave the house. How can we do that? We just came to him. The family came to him to really spend time with him.
So, because we've known each other for so many years, but are you willing to share how Carry the Vision came in, which is who we're a part of, obviously, came
Yes.
into Sam's life and the family's life?
Yes. So, yes, we've known each other for over 2 decades, and never would I have in my wildest dreams thought we would connect at this point in life for this very reason.
Yeah.
You took that path, and this phenomenal work that you're doing through Carry the Vision. I think I've told you over the years how much I admire the work that you are doing for those, because I have a huge heart for those that are incarcerated. Always have, not always, since my brother started his journey, to be fair, many years ago, starting in the teen years. And so it just so happens here I am in this situation revolving around a family member going to prison and navigating all of that. You and I had talked about, could you visit him? What's the potentiality for that? And that eventually evolved to, hey, Anne, I have him living in my home now. We were really wondering, my mom and I, the family, what can we do to help? How can we help rehabilitate him? We don't want this to be a temporary gig where he serves his time, check the box, and then he goes back out into the world. And then what? And so you came in and you spoke with me, you spoke with San, you talked to him about Carry the Vision and said, here's an opportunity. Do you want to do some work? Some work to really connect to yourself. The
Yeah.
opportunity to free yourself, not just from the prison that you were in, but the prison that we hold ourselves in. And so from there, he was gung ho, sign me up. What do I need to do? He was at a point of his life where he thought, wow, I'm in my late 40s. This is a revolving door for me. I want better for myself. And I knew the perfect person. So I connected him to you, and you all started doing that work. And it was interesting because it was during COVID. And so, I mean, you were mailing him booklets and homework and reading, and then he was mailing it back. And he was so excited to do this work because he had never done any form of self exploration. And this was his first pathway into really understanding who he was. How did he get here in life? And then there started this beautiful relationship that you two had established, and doing that work up until the day of graduation from that program.
The work that San and I did together had to go into exploring um, the addict. And the addict is alive and well in every single one of us. And it shows up in all of its myriad of forms: addiction to sex, addiction to crime, addiction to drugs, addiction. There are lots of addictions. So below those addictions are seeds. And those seeds were planted from the time we came into this lifetime, and they grow and blossom and bloom. And we all know that we cannot cut the branches off the top of the tree, which is what the addiction looks like. Is what are those seeds that need to be pulled out by the root? And those seeds that San and I explored were abandonment, trauma, abuse. And I'll let Vanessa give voice to what those, I mean, she was the older sister. I mean, she knows exactly. And some people take those seeds, this is no judgment, and they actually, it becomes their life mission. The one thing that Sand does talk about is, I lost everything when my father died. And then that he filled his pockets with the excuse of, without him, I am nothing. I'm a renegade. I'm an addict. I'm a criminal. And so the exploration started there, but that's a big picture look of who is San and what is informing his choices that started. I'll stop there. Vanessa, you go ahead. You lived
Yeah.
with, who's your brother?
Absolutely. And thank you for saying that, we all have some form of addictions. Going backwards a little bit, my brother, at the time our father passed away, was 13 years old. I was 15 and my older brother was 17. I learned within the last year, that San was the one who actually found him. My father was working on in the bathroom. At the time, he had an aneurysm. And so San, as a 13-year-old boy, found him. I happened to be at work, started working really early, so I wasn't there. My older brother was home along with another friend, and my brother screamed, San screamed for help. And then from there, ambulance, 911, and the whole thing. But the amount of trauma that must have caused for him. At the time that this occurred, San was a straight A student, top athlete. He had a very, very bright future. Teachers loved him. To know him, and I think Ann can speak to this, when you get to know the true self, the true San, he's extremely lovable. He's hilarious,
Yeah.
extremely intelligent, very athletic, just so many gifts. So after, yes, our dad's passing, to just be a little bit more personal here, in my culture, coming from the Indian background, from India, therapy is not really a thing. Discussing your feelings, you don't do that. You just move on with life. That happened. The next day, you just up and go about your business. And so that's just not how it works, though. And so for San, he went from straight A student, top athlete, to gangs in the street because they were filling that void for him. And Anne had mentioned, we all have addictions. I had my own, older brother had his own, and we all have to realize at some point we're ready to heal. We're ready to feel it and we're ready to heal it. Sam didn't do that. I was just lucky with the opportunity to, meet the right people and get the right guidance. I met Anne in my 20s, and she's been a huge influence in my life. I'll be 50 in a few weeks. So, I mean, I've been very lucky, very blessed. So Sam did go down that path. And I'll tell you, as he started going to juvenile hall and he started going to jail and it progressed from there, the number one comment that followed him through all of these institutions was, "Why are you here?" The guards would say to him, "You don't fit in. You don't belong." And part of that was his intelligence. He had become certified in prison to teach Microsoft Office to prisoners, and guards were tapping into him for support. He's really intelligent, very well liked. And the other part of that is, visiting in prison, it's not often that somebody has visitors every single weekend. And so while he was in California, I would drive my mom. We'd get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I had very little ones, a toddler and a baby, and get them packed up. And I would make the drive, whether it was Kalinga, Avenal, San Quentin, wherever it was, because they're often moved around. That's what we did. And so, it is unfortunate that he filled his gaps and his voids with people on the street that didn't have his best interest at heart and using a substance, whereas that was the only way for him to not feel right. And so it just took him down a path that, I always say this, addiction is a very sad thing, especially when it's drugs. I've said to Anne before, I became an addict too, but my addiction was food. My addiction was, filling my life with people so that I was so busy with people I didn't have to feel. The difference is obviously that those type of addictions aren't going to take you to prison. Those type of addictions, they're going to have a negative impact, but they're not going to take you down the path San went down. So I've always had a big, deep sadness in my heart for him, in that that's what he chose to fill his void at the time that our dad died. um, and then, going to prison, you're not getting therapy, you're not healing that.
Yeah.
Out in the free world, I went to therapy, still go to therapy, and I knew what I needed to be whole. Not so much for San. He's now in prison, and he knows what he needs to do to survive.
Yeah.
Different ball game. And with Carry the Vision, taking it back to what Anne had just said, him doing that inner work, peeling back the layers of how he got to where he got to, really getting to the root cause problem and empowering him with the knowledge to make different decisions, to remove the power from the negative emotions,
Yeah.
from the narrative he had to create to survive. I do this because without my dad, I'm this. And with Carry the Vision, it was, no, we're going to go back to that place. We're going to revisit it, and we're going to put truth over your narrative to disempower those narratives so that your belief system is that which aligns to who you really are and where you really want to go in life. And that deep work that he did, true story, the day he graduated,
Oh,
still in COVID,
yeah.
here comes Carry the Vision. You have Debbie, you have Anne, certificate and balloons, and here he is in house arrest, feeling forgotten, feeling unseen. So we plan to surprise him. And so, Anne parks a little bit down the street, and we know what's going on. I told my mom, family's in it, the boys know about it. And he opens the door, and surprise. And I tell you, that was fun, sure, but it was so much more than that. It
Yeah.
was, you matter. And I
Mhm.
think that was a pivotal moment in his life, and one that, he'll never forget that.
Yeah, I think what touched me so deeply during that time, it wasn't just, he actually gave voice to what it
Yeah.
was for him. He gave voice to that in front of his entire, all of you, the whole family. Receiving the certificate was a piece of paper, but what changed in him, and he actually gave voice to it, was humbling, humbling.
Very much so. I'll never forget something he said. And as you were presenting him with the certificate, he had written a speech. And in that speech, he ended it with, I'm betting on me. And
Yes.
for him to bet on himself means that the work is working.
Mhm. Was
Yeah.
very powerful.
Yep.
Before we close this, Vanessa, I mean, I work with people within the jails, incarcerated men and women, and I hear from those within, about their families. If you had a message for families, for the criminal justice system, because you've been practicing this for a long time, what would you say?
I would say beyond the stigma, beyond the stereotype, beyond the mistakes and the journey that got these people to where they are is a human being. There is somebody with a story. There are people who didn't just wake up and say, I think I'll go down this path in life. These are human beings that, if given an opportunity to be seen, to be heard, to help lead them back to who they are before the decisions they made that got them to that point,
Yeah.
and to help them start a new path and to believe in themselves so they can bet on themselves. It's not easy. It's a lot of work. The system's designed to protect society. But what often happens is people are sent to prison, and we'll use Sand since that's who we're talking about. As a young person, as a teenager, at a critical point in his life, found his father dying, and that just started a whole domino effect.
Yeah.
Who would he have been had that not happened? But it's not too late. You can go back and support and help hold space for people to heal and to discover their gifts. And, in the prison system, if it wasn't for Carry the Vision, I've never heard of another organization, and maybe there are, but I've never heard of another organization that does that type of work, that goes back and meets people where they're at and gives them the opportunity to be seen, to be heard, and know that they matter. And from that point on, you're freeing them from the prison that they put themselves in
Mhm.
with that trauma informed story. And you're releasing them from that so they can create a whole nother story. I've heard of people who are in prison for life, but they're more free than people who are in the outside world.
So agree.
So, absolutely, this work that you're doing, I know I've asked you over the years, can I help? How can I help? And this was before you stepped in and really helped change Sand's life. I've been asked how, I teach dance, I teach, what gifts do I have that I can use to serve? That's born from a place of seeing a human being go from healthy, whole, and vibrant to broken, to addicted, to hopeless. And to see the work that your organization does, I mean, that's the least that I can do. These folks in prison, as we would visit my brother over the course of a decade, we met their families, their siblings, their children, their parents. It's not just the prisoner that's imprisoned, it's the families that are impacted as well. And so the work that Carry the Vision doing is critical. It's necessary. I could only imagine a world where we had more of this and
Yeah.
people go to jail for whatever reason and they come out restored with a new vision for their own life because they now believe in themselves and they've healed those broken places. So I would
Yeah.
just love the message to be, see their humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well said. I want to thank you, Vanessa, for sharing your heart with us. Your story is a beacon of a hope and a call to action for all of us to advocate for a more compassionate and just society. Looking ahead, we have some other exciting episodes lined up for those who have had to have come out the other side, those who have chosen some very difficult roadmaps for their lives. but all about transformation, compassion, and understanding. We are all walking this road, and to take the hand of the one that's next to you. So until our next episode of Uncomplicating the Justice System, I'd like to thank Vanessa, and I look forward to hearing from all of you. Thank you.